What's going on, world? Coming at you guys again. We got another quick video. Celebration. Let's talk about it. So today's the 4th of July, 2026. It marks our 250th year or anniversary of independence as a country and as a nation, as a people, as a culture, as a society. The reality of the situation is yes, our history has had tremendous progress, tremendous growth, but that has not happened without the consistent and unfortunate situations and circumstances in which continue to be controversial in today's day and age in our history. But that alone should not be so deciduous nor divisible in which it alienates and disenfranchises Americans as we see as a whole. The reality of the situation is nothing and no one is perfect. God teaches us in the Bible. The reality of the situation is the last beings in which God created, which we know are Adam and Eve. And the reality of the situation is Adam and Eve were more akin than anything. Remember, Eve was created from Adam's rib, which means that Adam's DNA was used to create Eve. Eve was not designed to be Adam's wife. It was his sibling, twin, sister. So the product of their procreation, or the fruit of the poisonous tree, or the apple as it were, is actually her virginity being broken. That's the hymen. That's virginity being taken place. That's why they covered themselves with leaves, because in a perfect environment like the Garden of Eden, they had never seen blood before. That's why they covered themselves up with leaves, and that's why they hid, because they were shocked, they were traumatized, and they panicked. Well, the reality of the situation is God recognized this situation for what it was, and he told Adam and Eve that I love you much, but I have to cast you out because the offspring in which you are going to bring into this world will be less than perfect, and they will be a danger to everybody else. So he cast them out, and that was the unfortunate situation. And as we saw, when it came to Cain and Abel, because they were intellectually disinclined and disabled, we saw Cain kill Abel, because he didn't have the cognitive and intellectual capacity to understand the actions and interactions that they had with God when it came to virtue and sacrifice. Now, the unfortunate reality is God, again, did not kill Cain. He set upon the same sequence of events. He cast him out because he knew that it was very difficult for him to be able to comprehend and acknowledge his actions because he was imperfect. This is the unfortunate situation, and this is where we are in today's day and time. We as American citizens, we as people, as human beings, are imperfect. We have to stop judging each other so harshly, especially when we know specifically that our country is founded upon the belief of the practices of the Bible, in which we all know that we are all imperfect beings. And we all know scientifically the fact that the prefrontal cortex, or the brain, does not fully develop until the age of 25 to 35 years of age. We have to change our ways in which we treat each other. We have to stop looking at each other in such vindictive and vengeful and malicious ways. Yes, we have significant forms of progression and transcendence within our society, within our history. And we also have inhumane acts as well as atrocities in which have taken place. And it's time for all people to step up to the plate and to recognize that, yes, we should compensate, we should motivate, we should support, and we should help assimilate in order to make America more prosperous and grow into the future. As I've said before, we're $39 trillion in debt, and we're only expanding and getting further and further in debt. And it's time for America to expand. The reality of the situation is we are all children of God. We are all created, and we are all descendants of God with equal parts to play. And America is the number one country that's leading the effort in order to reunite all human beings together. There is not another country on the planet that is more diverse than America. There is not another country that is more accepting of human beings from any race, color, creed, culture, or religion than America. We are number one, and we will continue to be number one. It's time for us to strengthen up our citizens to ensure that we are all moving forward collectively, that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And when times get tough, like we all have seen, we understand We are human beings, and while we may be imperfect, we have the capacity to adapt, overcome, and to learn. And even though we may face situations in which we come into constant conflict, our neurosynaptic communication pathways will continuously facilitate some form of exchange. And at some point, whether or not we actually have the capacity to overcome or to find a way to negotiate this obstacle, our cortisol levels will remain high. But even in the Bible, it says, be merry, drink, and be merry. So when it comes around to this 4th of July and we reflect on all of our transgressions, both good, both bad, sit back and enjoy where you are. Don't dwell too much on the past. It's time to focus on the present. It's time to plan for the future. It's okay to kick back and have a beer. It's okay to kick back and have a glass of wine. Everything in moderation. But it is not till you get to the point to where you are inebriated or to the point to where you are drunk. Because there is a point and period, even in the Bible, where it says, drink and be merry. Because as we go through our stressful situations, our cortisol levels rise significantly. And through constant exposure and constant stress, our cortisol levels remain high until we have the capacity to overcome. And if we never have the capacity to overcome, it's most likely because our cortisol levels are too high and we don't have the capacity to think outside the box in this specific situation. So go ahead, enjoy yourself for today, the 4th of July. It's a 3-day weekend. Have a beer. Have a glass of wine. I do not support nor promote hard alcohol. But the reality of the situation is alcohol in moderation, very minimalistically, a beer, an 8-ounce glass of wine, can temporarily lower your cortisol levels. And while your neurosynaptic communications and exchanges and pathways have already been facilitated due to your stressors and situations in which you have constantly come into contact with and which you haven't had the capacity to overcome, the small amounts of dopamine release, the small amounts of lowering your cortisol due to, like I said, a bottle of beer or maybe an 8-ounce glass of wine, it should be enough to give you an epiphany when you wake up the next morning about how you have been dealing with the issues. Because there's two sides to the coin. There's many different ways to skin a cat. It is our job to try to facilitate and push and continue to move forward collectively. It is time for us to be able to take and bend the knee in order to let another individual stand on your shoulder. Because as it stands, if the apple is too far and too high in the tree, sometimes it takes one person to bend the knee and to stand up with another person on his shoulders in order to get the apple so both people can share.